There is literally no dopamine in any kind of paperwork for me. None whatsoever. Managing bills, managing paperwork, managing taxes. There is no happy making chemicals in any of that. It is just drain. Hello and welcome to Divergent Paths, the podcast where we explore life through the lens of neurodivergence, creativity, and innovation. I'm your host, Dr. Regina McMenemy, here to navigate the winding roads of neurodivergent experiences with insight, humor, and a touch of lived wisdom. In this episode, we're diving into a topic that resonates with many neurodivergent individuals: clutter. Whether it's the piles of projects we've started, the papers we meant to organize, or the sentimental items we can't quite let go of, clutter is often more than just physical. It's emotional and mental too. We'll unpack the unique ways neurodivergence intersects with clutter, share personal stories, and discuss strategies to manage and embrace it in our lives. Joining me is Russ, host of the DIY Business Podcast, who's here to help guide this conversation with thoughtful and curious questions. Let's dive into the beautifully chaotic world of clutter and explore why it's more than just stuff for so many of us. So stay tuned, and thanks for listening to Divergent Paths.
So how's the new office? The new recording studio?
It's in process.
It's in process. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, from the camera everything looks
it looks great from here. Yes, that's because the painter's tape is just off the camera.
Okay. Okay. So an episode on clutter. I'm wondering, because here's my thing. If there's clutter in this space, like right now, I do have some stuff on the other side of the camera that's kind of not great looking. Like I literally have like a Christmas decoration, and it's, as of recording this, several weeks past Christmas.
Yes. Almost a month, almost a full month past Christmas.
Because I have to repair it. I have to get some super glue and fix the thing. So I left it here, and it's been sitting there, and it's annoying the heck out of me. And I got this new cool monitor, but there's some old monitor parts there. There's this clutter that just I don't like. It's distracting to me.
Okay.
Because it makes me think of these things that I have to do. So that's what clutter means to me. But what does clutter mean to a neurodivergent person?
Well, I mean, all of that is true.
Which could be me.
Right. Exactly. Which might possibly be you. Yet to be determined. That's an episode for the future.
Season finale, maybe.
Yes. I mean, that is true. For neurodivergent people, clutter is a constant battle, physical clutter. But also, I would say that my neurodivergence, and specifically my ADHD, makes my brain a cluttered place as well.
So isn't there some saying that's like cluttered place, clear mind, or clear mind, cluttered?
Probably
there's
something
some weird,
along those lines.
I mean, there's a saying for everything.
Yeah.
Can't say that it actually makes sense, but
yeah.
If clutter around you, does that mean also clutter inside for you?
I think I constantly have both. Like, and I think one of the things that I've started to recognize about my relationship with physical clutter is the fact that my brain is always so cluttered. I don't always see the physical clutter. So I will have a space that will get cluttered up, and I will not even recognize that it has gotten cluttered until I can't see anything else but the clutter. And it becomes like you're talking about right now with the Christmas decoration and, the monitor parts or whatever, as like kind of bugging you. I don't have that. It bugs me until I get to a place where there isn't anything else that I can see, which is either it has gotten to a point where it is so big that it's getting in the way of other things, or my hyperfocus just decides to fixate on it for whatever reason.
So is So, okay. So it's sort of, I guess I would say it overstimulates me to have that there because
Right.
I'm like, oh, I want to go take care of this.
Right.
I gotta go get super glue. I keep forgetting to get super glue.
Yeah.
I gotta do that. When the clutter is in your mind, is that overstimulation as well?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that's when, when I talked about going on, the ADHD medication, that's part of what happened was like there was an internal decluttering. And so because things are, more regulated just, in my brain, my nervous system is more regulated, and that gives me more space to actually be able to perceive my physical area in a way that I generally that I hadn't before. And one of the things, like if I am wondering if someone I know is neurodivergent, one of the things I will look at is what the flat areas in their household look like. So for me, I got rid of like my dresser in my bedroom. I can't remember if I've told this story before. Have I told this story to you before?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I had a big double wide long dresser in my bedroom, and there are two things that happen with it. For a lot of neurodivergent folk, when you can't see something, it doesn't exist. So we tend to have a lot of stuff around us visually because like I will often forget to take my vitamins. If I tried to put them away or put them in the medicine cabinet, I would never remember to take my vitamins, or now that I am older, my medications have to be out so I see them. I have medications I take in the morning. I have medications I take at bedtime, and they have to be out on my bedside table in plain sight so I remember to take them. And I have alarms set up and I have systems set up to remember to take my meds, but they need to be where I can see them. So there's like, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist is a very, very much a reality. So what happened with my dresser was twofold. I would forget the clothes I had in my dresser drawers. I would completely forget that I even had them. I would open a dresser drawer and be like, oh, that's right. I have all of these leggings. I have all this exercise stuff. I have all this stuff. I would just completely forget that it existed, and I would never wear it. And then in addition, the dresser was a flat space, a, horizontal flat space that stuff just collected on. And this is the exact example of what I'm talking about, where I wouldn't see it until it was all I could see. And then I would have to clean up everything that was on it. And so I have been in the process in the last few years, my recognition of my neurodivergence and understanding that I need places for things. And one of the things I have now is to keep stuff from collecting on my kitchen counter where I need to do food prep and work and stuff. I keep a bin on the other side of like the kitchen wall, because I don't have doors. I have like archways between my living room and my kitchen. On the living room archway wall is a table that has a bin, and I put the stuff that I would normally collect on the kitchen counter, just random stuff like mail I have to deal with or things that need to be put away in my bedroom or whatever. Instead of just piling them on the kitchen counter where I will stop seeing them until I need to move them to cook, I just put them in that bin. And then when that bin is full, in theory, when that bin is full, I will empty it. So I tried to do that with my dresser. It didn't work. And I realized that for my clothes, I just needed to be able to see everything. So now I can step into my closet and everything in my closet is visible. I can see every piece of clothing I have from standing in one place in my closet. I can see everything. And that is the best system I have had for my closet ever.
What do you do about junk drawers?
Well, junk drawers, I have a junk drawer, but it is reasonably organized because a junk drawer should have a purpose. Like it, Rachel, who from Serena Space, who was a professional organizer we had on episode 3 or 4, says, junk drawers have a purpose. They serve a purpose. You put all the little fussy things that you need, like once a year or whatever, like these little things that you need to make sure you keep somewhere, all go in the junk drawer. So like, I know that I can open my junk drawer and I can wrap a gift if I need to, because there are scissors and there are tape in my junk drawer. Always. They're always there. My key to my mailbox is in there. My key to my neighbor's house is in there, because there are these things that I need to keep track of. I also have a bunch of candles for like birthday cakes and stuff, all kept in that drawer, because they are those things that you only need every now and then, but you do need them every now and then. I have matches. There's a lighter in there too. Like I could do the birthday party, the little things.
Okay.
Because I had a birthday party when I turned 12. My mom put paper matches on my cake. And there's a picture of me giving her a death look, because as I'm trying to like blow out, not wood matches, but like out of a matchbook, paper matches in my cake, and they were wet, and so they weren't staying lit. It was awful. Like, and very vivid memory of this. So like, this is not, we do not fail on birthday cake candles in my household.
Right. So mine with that is batteries. I used to get toys for like, birthday, Christmas, whatever. Right. Especially like for Christmas, you get a toy and it's like requires batteries, and then we wouldn't have any batteries. Yes. Like now I'm obsessive about batteries. I always have some.
I always have. I think I have that same trauma. We could never finding scissors in my household growing up was almost impossible. It was almost impossible. It was almost as impossible as finding soup spoons when my mother decided those were appropriate for digging in the garden, because there came a point in my childhood where like half the supply of soup spoons in our house were in the garden.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
It's funny how these things stick with you, right?
It really is. Like there are some, like, I will pick up a pack of like scissors at Costco every now and then, because I'm like, I will never be without scissors, because it was always a struggle. And I always needed them for projects or school or whatever, and we can never find them. So. Anyway, tangent.
So why do you think that clutter is such a common struggle?
I think it's both that we're taught systems that are neurotypical for managing stuff. They're not for people who have divergent brains. I've talked a little bit about different times that I've felt shame. Having a messy house feels shameful. Not being able to keep up on cleaning the house feels shameful. And all of the clutter sort of, cycles into that. And when you feel shame, you are less likely to want to change something or to do something or to feel empowered over it, right? You just feel bad, and then you get stuck or you have a hard time, right? So, I think that's all of that kind of goes into that. I think, the cluttered nature of a neurodiverse mind, leads to that too. In addition, hold on one second, I got to take a sip of water because my cough is like trying to get to me.
No worries.
In addition,
here, wait. Actually, I'm going to tell Nicole something real quick.
Okay, sure.
Pause.
Yep.
Hey, Nicole, there's sushi in there if you want it. You scared me. I didn't even know it. Boo. I just heard like noises, like. Yeah, that's me. Okay, I'm recording. I'm going to go back in. And there's sushi thing in there from Costco if you want.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Here, Nicole. She didn't know I was home. Oh, you're muted.
I was muted. I was like, tell her I said hi.
Okay. So in addition,
a lot of people with neurodivergence struggle with memory, and not just like working memory, but like long-term memory as well. And so we have a higher likelihood of holding on to things for the sentimental meaning it might have.
So holding on to the object holds on to the memory, because you're not going to remember it otherwise.
Right. Because
or you feel like you might not.
Exactly. You worry that you will forget, people, places, things, experiences, if you don't have the physical, manifestations of those memories or something to trigger those memories. And then this is definitely something I think that has been part of my experience, is wanting to hold on to things that help me remember my friends and things like that. I mean, there's like a joke and like some of the memes are like, oh yeah, I forgot you existed. I'm sorry I didn't text you back, but I forgot you existed, like to your friends. And it can be really damaging to your friendships. I've had a couple of friendships with, more neurotypical leaning people that have ended because they were like, well, you just, you dropped off the planet. And I'm like, yeah, I got stressed out and like, I'm sorry that you blanked out of existence for me, but that is kind of unfortunately how it goes sometimes. Like the things that I'm not presented with right in my field of vision in some way are harder for me to track and remember. So, I hold on to and have held on to a lot of stuff with not even like mindfully knowing I was doing it to hold on to the memories, but like always having this sense of like wanting to remember who I was and where I came from and needing stuff to be able to do that.
Is it you said a few minutes ago the shame that you feel when somebody sees your messy house, or if your house is cluttered,
right.
let's say, and you feel that shame.
Yep.
The non-memory, the forgetting something, the like, oh, this thing happened and I don't remember it because of the brain clutter, right, of the not remembering this, not
maliciously
moment.
It's not, I don't maliciously forget things. Yeah,
right. But do you feel like that same sort of shame, like that, oh, I should have remembered this, like,
yeah,
I can't,
absolutely. I hate forgetting people's birthdays, and I always forget people's birthdays.
Today's my birthday.
Right. We know this. I know this is not true because Russ and I have a long-standing joke about the fact that I am 3 months older than him, and so exactly. I know his birthday perfectly because when my birthday rolls around, you were 1 year older than me
for 3 months is right. The way we phrase that.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So I never forget. Russ is like, you never forget my birthday. Of course, I never forget your birthday. We have a whole shtick about it, like, and that's part of the reason why I don't forget it is because we have a shtick about it, right? So like, it's in my memory for those reasons. But I generally forget people's birthdays. It's just
so with that, is that just, hey, I kind of make sure I need to update a calendar, or I need to, like, how do you manage that?
I mean, I do. Yeah, there are birthdays that I keep in my calendar so that I remember. I did have a relationship I had a friendship with someone who was really, very offended that I had forgotten his birthday. And so when I put his birthday in my calendar, I put reminders like 2 months before, a month before, and like a week before, so that I could have a couple of moments of, okay, this is coming. Okay, this is coming. So that it wouldn't just be the day of and I go, oh, hell, it's this person's birthday. I need to do something. But had a lead in time. But reminders like that fall into a whole nother category of executive dysfunction, because that's essentially part of what we're talking about with clutter too. The inability to keep up with keeping things tidy is a part of, if you don't have a whole lot of executive functioning and you don't have a whole lot of capacity to make a whole bunch of decisions, if you don't get the reward chemicals in your brain from finishing things like that, there is literally no dopamine in any kind of paperwork for me. None whatsoever. Managing bills, managing paperwork, managing taxes.
Right.
There is no happy making chemicals in any of that. It is just drain. And if I am in a space where, for whatever reason, like my executive functioning, I've been sick for a few weeks. I have been struggling with a sinus infection that has just decided that it's going to live forever. And my executive functioning while I have been sick has been compromised, because how could it not be? I've been sick for a long time. Right. And so I haven't been able to focus on work things that I wanted to focus on. I haven't been able to do a lot of different things. I dropped a bunch of balls and I just kind of like let a whole bunch of things fall to the side because I was sick and that's what I needed to do. But anything that kind of comes in that interrupts whatever small amount of executive functioning I have, almost often you will see it first in my house. So like my dishes will pile up. I went out to fix lunch today and I had all of the dishes from last night I had to do before I could actually make lunch because I hadn't put anything away last night. But things like that. And when you have a limited amount of a resource like that allows you to make decisions and get things done, it is really easy to let things pile up, like physical things pile up.
Mm-hmm. One thing that always helped me, especially on you mentioned the forms, the taxes, the things like that. And one of the things that, Greg and I over on the DIY for Business podcast are constantly saying, and, now I'm giving you business owner advice here, but it's like those boring things that you don't like to do are also taking time away from the things that you love to do with the business, right? So, contracting that out or having somebody to do certain aspects of the business, it's not always, financially available, I guess, in the beginning of starting a business. So you just have to kind of, bite the bullet there. But later on, it's nice to have somebody to take those things on, and it actually helps your business grow as because you're able to focus on the things that you like and the reason why you did the business in the first place.
Exactly. And that's part of it is like needing to put systems in place. That's a system. Like that's a system of support, right? Having somebody who does your taxes or having someone who does your like I did, articles of incorporation, like having a service do that, which is, what I ended up doing for the business.
You'd still be doing that if you did that yourself.
I would still be
and
stuck
something
doing
would be wrong. And
right. And even with the service, something is wrong, and I do have to go back, and there's a bunch of stuff I have to change. And
something's always wrong with that stuff.
Never, right? Because nothing's perfect, right? It's made by people, so it's not perfect. But yeah, and that is a system of support, and so that is one thing. One of the things I've been looking at with the business because I really like to connect with people. That's one of the reasons why I want to do like consulting work, is because what I loved about being a teacher, what I loved about being an instructional designer, and what I loved about the admin work in higher ed I was doing was the fact that I could build relationships with people and I could add value to their experiences, right? And this is what I want to do with the coaching business. But right now it is me and this computer. This is what I have. And I do not get a lot of dopamine from sitting in front of my computer trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do for my business. Right. I'm going to get a lot of work. I'm going to get a lot of dopamine from the business when it gets going, but getting to that point, I don't have that. So I had to figure out ways to kind of declutter my thinking in that, because then the business becomes this monolith. It becomes this huge thing, right? Of all these different components. I'm worried about paperwork. I'm worried about how do I do billing? I'm worried about, did I get my social media set up? Did I get the notes for the podcast done? Like I have all of these different pieces. And so all of those end up becoming clutter and cluttering up my brain too. So, you started this episode asking about how it was going moving into my new office. Well, I am really happy in this space. It is unbelievably cluttered right now. And it is actually driving me crazy that it's not ready for me to kind of be working in it yet. But part of that is because I've been slowly like redoing things. I painted because I really wanted this to be my new environment for the business and separate from the other parts of my house and the other things that I'm doing. And that was a ritual I needed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like right now, and we've talked about our garages, right? Our
He took a deep breath. You didn't see that, but I did.
I need to clean it out again. I mean, I need to go through and just straighten it out, because in the back of my mind, it's always there. It's like,
right.
I want that extra space. I want the clear space in there. Mm-hmm. And it just, it rests on you when you've
exactly.
That,
and right now, to get myself into this office, I have destroyed my garage. My garage is barely functional now, because so much of what was in here ended up going out into what is going to be the craft space for my daughter and kind of the teen hangout area. There was a big TV in this room that we weren't using this room in my house at all. Nobody was coming in here. Nobody was using it. My daughter was out in the garage doing crafts, and this big TV was just going to waste in here. And that's part of the reason why I made the shift to kind of move in here. So we moved the TV out and everything, but now the craft space is just absolutely overwhelmed with all of the stuff that needs to be organized out there. And whereas right now in this space, there's a lot of dopamine for me to come in here and work on this space because it's exciting to like put my space together for it to be the business. I'm going to have to find some to get into that garage at some point. And get that put together because it does not function for her right now. It doesn't function for her at all. So, it is down the line as the thing, like, and I can only do, so much. I'm only, really one person doing this. And I have to like pull myself back and set my expectations of like, you can't do it all at once. Like when I was younger, I could do more every, in a day, but I don't run myself into the ground anymore.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you've got to realize there's only there's only so much you could do. That goes back to the thing of like getting people to help, and once you can, with the business that you run. Another thing is like like one thing that I do a lot of like lists, right? The to-do list thing, the task list. That's one of, I guess, my techniques of like just trying to get things done. Like I have a notepad. We're on camera so you can see it, but I do a notepad that's this boogie board thing that you have to erase to get a new note in there. So I have to deal with all that stuff in order to go to my next note. Like nice. Sure, I can take a photo, put it into something else, but then it's onto a list somewhere else.
Right.
So like on a call, you quickly take notes and then, move on. I try to do that to kind of, I don't know, like, there was I think it was called Getting, like a book, Getting Things Done, that I read, like one of the DIY books that I've, for business books that I've read. It was something like, your mind is for ideas, not for holding them, or for creating ideas, not for holding them.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, I don't know, that's what I go by, because I do have a ton of ideas, but yet, they tend to disappear if I don't write them down and put them into some
if you don't
list.
Keep track of them in some way. Yeah.
So that's my technique for kind of organizing all the clutter of ideas that come to my head. What are some techniques, actionable techniques, I guess, that somebody listening to the podcast could do like today?
So there's a bunch of different ways. A lot of people with neurodivergence will say that to-do lists don't really help them, in part because like traditional to-do lists don't have a priority. Like one of the other executive functioning issues that we have, that is one of the reasons why clutter builds up the way that it does, is I have a hard time prioritizing what's important. My brain doesn't always want to focus on the things that are the things I need to do, right? It wants to focus on where it's going to get the most dopamine or the most reward from. And that's not always. Often that is, not often, but unfortunately, and sometimes that is more going on my phone, like, to pull up social media or mess around, rather than, doing the things that I need to do. One of the things that I've been doing lately when I have a bunch of things that I need to get done is I create not really a to-do list, but sort of almost kind of like a menu of sorts with like short, medium, and tall tasks. So like something that I know that's going to be really quick and easy for me to get done would go on the short list. Something that takes a little bit more effort, a little bit more time, going to take more executive functioning and more kind of motivation to get going would go on the medium. And something that is a tall order, right? Something that I know is going to take, the resolve, I need to get this done kind of mindset, I put on the tall. And I try during the day to pace myself to do the tall tasks when I have a lot of energy, when I come back from something. So often I will hit my stride during the day about 10 a.m. I get up about 7. I take my medications. I eat my breakfast. I have whatever, beverage I'm going to have. And I can fuss around and kind of like slog through like emails and stuff before then. But by 10 o'clock, I get to the groove, right? And I get to the point where I can focus and I can get some work done. So I try to remind myself to start with like a tall task when I'm in that space, and to be mindful of the steps it takes, the rituals it takes to get me to that 10 a.m. feeling, so that I'm not beating myself up that I'm not at that 10 a.m. feeling from 8 until 5, because I'm never going to run on a cycle like that. And I'm always going to run on pits and valleys, right? So I need to like pull back and say, okay, about this time and about this, you're going to have the capacity for some of these harder tasks. So I try to parse them out, not just in, I need to get these 10 things done today, because then that feels huge to me. But in today's energy, I'm probably going to be able to get a couple of things off my short, maybe one or two off the medium and tall, depending on how big they are. So thinking of tasks in that, and thinking of rituals you can do to kind of set yourself up to be in the space to do your best work.
Right. Well, I mean, it sounds what you just did was you decluttered your to-do list.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I prioritized
created different zones for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I made zones and I made it into areas, so that instead of looking at a list of 10 things I need to do, I can, kind of gamify it a little, make it a little like, okay, you can really do a tall task day or something to that effect. There's other ways I know of people who've done this with like, they'll make a list of 20 things that need to be done, and they'll roll a D20, a 20-sided die that you would use for like, tabletop role-playing games. And then you do whatever number comes up, and then you're taking the executive functioning out of it. You don't have to think about it. The dice is telling you what to do, which can be a hack to make it easier. Rachel does that with her daughter, and to get her motivated to clean her room. And if she re-rolls a number that she's already done, so if she re-rolled, like if she did number 6 and then she rolled a 6 again, she'd either get like a piece of candy, or they'd do a dance break or something like that to add some dopamine into the process of like cleaning, So there's other ways to handle it. Small, medium, and large is what's working for me right now, or small, short, medium, and tall is what's working for me right now. The other thing I would make sure to tell people is like change your approaches up, like, because that adds dopamine. When I came up with short, medium, and tall, I was so excited. I'm like, oh, this is a great idea, right? Because, this is completely different from what I have done before. And so changing how you approach, like coming up with new novel ideas and different ideas for doing this, is also a good help.
So I worked with a company. We did the same thing of actually doing sizes of the bucket that things were going into, but it would totally screw you up because we use Starbucks. So tall was the small.
All right.
We use tall, grande, and venti. We actually grabbed those terms, and yeah, it's going to mess you up.
Yeah, that would throw me.
Your tall was our small, like,
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Totally backwards.
And the gamifying thing, like that's actually why we did it as well. It was to gamify to get certain areas worked on first versus
Right. Yep.
And I would think too, now if you have one of those larger tasks that you wanted to get done, sort of chunking it into different pieces.
Yep.
So that you're instead of
breaking it
having
down.
a tall, you break it down so that you have a small and a medium, or 3 smalls.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Breaking it down. There's a great app called Goblin Tools that you can download, and it's AI generated. You could do this with any kind of AI tool as well, and say, I need to paint my office. What are the steps I need to do to take it? And it will break it down. So Goblin Tools is an app that you put on your phone, and you can just, I need to clean my kitchen. What are the steps I should take to clean my kitchen, or whatever? And then you can go through, and if it gives you 6 steps and you feel like step 3 has too many pieces in it, you can say, break this step down into more pieces. And you can get it down to be smaller and smaller and smaller. And then you get, the dopamine rewards of like hitting, however many you get. I mean, it'd be fun if they added something like that in, and you could like level up and you get points for each one of them. And then like,
right.
you had a level 5 day because you got this many of these tasks done, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You could do that yourself.
Well, I mean, I think what you're describing here too is something that's actually very, interesting and intriguing for a, business owner, right? Like, oh,
Absolutely.
hey, we're not getting enough stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
Let's set up a point system and let's, do this so that within our database, we
Mm-hmm.
can, track how many calls were made today, and those are worth 5 points, and how many emails were sent, and those are worth 2 points, and how many that, like you could completely gamify something to say at the end of the day, hey, you had
Yeah.
a 100 point,
Right.
100 point day.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting to talk about, that, but then, there's also like, you know, uh, what is it called? Like efficiency rates,
Right.
or utilization rates, right? Where like, how many billable hours did a person get in a particular week? And, how much time was focused on that versus,
Right.
other things that are not billable to client work. And it's like all of those things are like, if you can gamify those, I think
Yeah. Well,
they're
and then
just
that
so
would
much more
remove.
successful.
Yeah, and that would remove some of the, because as soon as you said that, like, oh, like for me and my neurodivergent brain, oh well, how many billable hours did you get? And it's like, oh well, did I fall short? Like I
Right.
immediately started thinking, oh, what happens if I don't hit? Like, what if I, like, because often metrics like that in workplaces aren't used as a lift up. They're used as um, a punitive, right? You
Mhm.
didn't do well enough, so you're not getting a bonus or whatnot, like things like that. So gamifying, true gamifying it should be to help people do better and to be a reward system versus a punitive system, right? Where
Mhm.
you feel
Mhm.
like you're not matching the hours that you're supposed to have, or doing what type of work you're supposed to do certain time.
Well, I mean, I look at that stuff too as like, and how I've, managed, and, the styles change with different companies and different things. But I mean, a very positive way of managing is to get people to those numbers,
Right.
and to create, whether it's through gamification or whatever it is. If you see somebody with a, we'll say utilization rates, let's say, they've got a 50 and the target's 70%, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're at 50%. Like, how do you get them to that? Instead of saying, oh, this is a punitive thing, it's like, this is a game. Let's get you
Right.
from 50 to 70.
Right.
Let's, let's roll the dice and figure it out.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
play the game, because if you were
Yep.
doing, X, Y, and Z, that's going to get you that extra 5%. Okay.
Yep.
Now, let's look at it. We did that. We made the 5%. Let's look at it. So I think even it's almost like taking the thing that I said about, a task and turning that into like the same sort of system with a goal of chunking it and saying,
Mm-hmm.
let's let's break it into, that 20%. It's 4 5%. Well, that's a lot easier to deal with.
Right.
So it's
And that's
it's
a
it's
lot easier to
always
look at,
interesting
right,
to
as
dig
a
into that.
step up. Yeah. As opposed to
Yeah.
you have to make this huge jump from, you're doing 50% of the 70% we want you to do, telling someone you need to do 20% more. It's a lot different if you say, okay, how can we level you 5? How can we get you 5% higher now? Or even 2 or 3,
Hmm.
or something like that,
Exactly.
where you can
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, smaller steps through it. And
Right.
and that, a lot of this is, at least in terms of business and in terms of this, because what we're stepping into right now are some things that are used as performance metrics, right? So
Mhm.
using performance metrics as a means of growth, versus a perfect goal to set, or
Yeah. Yeah.
a setting yourself to be exceptionally high,
Mhm.
and exceptionally successful, or fit, exceptionally well in whatever
Yeah.
measures.
Well, I mean, the reality of it is there's so many, it is so hard to find a, uh, let's just go with this 50/70 that we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about, right? Like, it's so hard to find somebody to work for a company that's going to hit you at that hit that 50%.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
the fact that they're there is great. And when you look at, like, and again, just talking like this random utilization rate that we have no idea what the company is or what it is, but you hire somebody, week one, they're going to be at 0. Yeah.
Right.
So if you were to just say, oh, you're at 50% and so we're going to let you go. And so now, we're down to 0% as a company owner. Like I've lost 50%. It's not that I've gained. So it is in the company's best interests to help get them from 50 to 55 to 60 to 65 to 70, to move them forward in whatever way. And that's what I think, so now I'm going to seg over to you and your business, because that's sort of like, what you're doing. You're not hitting these metrics and helping them in that way, but you're helping them to figure out solutions to make the people that they've found better and improve them and make their conditions better for the employee. So it's not just for the employee, but it's for the business owner, the managers, the entire company, lifting all ships.
Right. And it's to recognize that, neurodivergence can be a strength. Like I will never call neurodivergence a superpower, because a lot of people like this rhetoric of like, oh, you can do all these great things, which we have talked about in episodes prior. I will never call neurodivergence a superpower, because I do not get to turn it on and off sometimes. It is as flighty as it can be, right? And but there are inherent strengths in neurodivergence, and in having people on your team who are capable of seeing things in a different way, who are capable of describing things, who are capable of doing, a deep dive to deeply understand your business and your product and what's being sold, or your people and who's being served, who come from, if you're doing some kind of social justice work, who come from the groups that you're trying to support and change. You want people who have those experiences to come in. And so when we have something like performance metrics, which don't necessarily support people who might work in a neurodivergent way, like I can't keep a 9-to-5 schedule because my brain doesn't really work that way, right? So we want to make sure we support people whose brains fall out of that with a different schedule, let's say. But also, like, you want to make sure that people who can do your deep dives are doing your deep dives. Your people who are your ADHD people who have the capacity to brainstorm and come up with all kinds of creative solutions and ideas can get the support of the people who are the, the engineers who can make those things happen. Like, so you want that. So you want your hiring practices to be inclusive. You want your workspace to be inclusive. You want your performance reports to be inclusive of neurodiversity, so that all of those pieces are recognized and, supported, not just for the individuals you hire, but to create a robust business that will have this kind of, energy brought to it. So there's so much that we can do in those environments.
Totally. And I feel the passion from you on that.
I know, really.
Yeah.
Good, because it is like, this is like, I really feel like there's so much opportunity, and there's so many ways that we can cut short and we can not embrace people and not support people. And I think that there's, in large part, a lot of the accommodations don't need to be really outrageous, but they just need to exist, So
yeah. And I think, I just randomly did a little search here of just some numbers, right? So if you have a strong onboarding process, people are 82% more likely to stay more than a year with your company, right? Cultural fit, 27% more likely. And then engagement, if you're engaging with employees, 59% less likely to leave. So now I'm flipping the numbers. And then work-life balance, 70% of employees cite work-life balance as a key factor for staying. So it's like all of these different things. And then what you're doing is, I feel like, sort of helping all of those, right? Like, you're helping the onboarding experience, you're helping that cultural fit and engagement, and definitely the work-life balance as well, because
right.
So,
those are really, really important things. And And they are different depending on your neurotype, depending on how your brain approaches the world. You need different things. And a lot of the studies, and I don't have any pulled up because I didn't do a web search really quickly, but there are a lot of studies that show that the accommodations for people with neurodiversity help people who are neurotypical as well. They really aren't
totally
like, they really aren't these crazy things that are being asked for. But, when you are going to have, have somebody who needs them, it benefits everybody, and it benefits, like I said, the business overall.
Like I said, it lifts all ships.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's funny that we are having this conversation now that in the clutter.
I know,
we started talking about clutter. So, I mean, and this is a way to clean up, like declutter your business, perhaps.
No, totally. I mean, I think all of this fits.
Like, I agree. I'm not. Yeah,
I think. Totally. Because
it's very ADHD.
That it is. That's why it fits.
It is why it fits. Because we can see all those connections. But it is. This is where all of this kind of comes together. Like, there are so many different pieces of someone's life that comes together. Like, if you can get your workplace to be, more accommodating, to be easier and, more flexible, or I wanted to say flowy is really the word I want to go with. Like,
right.
Go with the flow.
Like
yeah.
Invent a new word.
Yes. God, I'm a doctor. I can do that.
You can. You love the words. They love you. It's all good.
I do.
All right. So if somebody did want to reach out to you to get your assistance.
Yep. Yeah. Check out my website. divergentpathsconsulting.com, and book a discovery session with me. I have half an hour discovery sessions available on my site that link directly to my calendar, and book a session, and let's talk about how we can work together.
Declutter their business.
Declutter your business. And that wraps up this episode of Divergent Paths. For neurodivergent individuals, clutter is often more than just the objects in our spaces. It's a reflection of our minds, our histories, and our unique ways of navigating the world. It can be both a source of frustration and a reservoir of memories and identity. If today's discussion resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you experience clutter in your life? What strategies and perspectives have helped you navigate it? You can reach out to me on Blue Sky at Divergent Paths Consulting. Let's keep this conversation going. As always, thank you for walking this path with me. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review if you're enjoying the show. Your support helps us reach more people and share more stories. Until next time, embrace your beautiful chaos and your divergent path.